We start in Japan, where the number of people who had the coronavirus and died has now topped 10,000. It took about 1 year for the tally to reach 5,000 since the first case of infection was confirmed in Japan. It took only 3 months for that figure to double. Japan's capital and 3 other prefectures are once again under a state of emergency from Sunday as authorities try to tamp down on rising coronavirus cases. The government wants companies to reduce the number of commuters by promoting working from home. But mobile phone data show nearly 40% more people were around Tokyo Station during rush hour on Monday morning compared with the Monday average during the first state of emergency about a year ago.
My company is encouraging teleworking, but we often have no choice but to go to the office.
My company is not so big, so we don't do teleworking.
Railway companies plan to reduce services while the declaration is in effect through May 11th. The government is pushing ahead on vaccinations. Inoculations for about 4.8 million healthcare workers started in February. As of last Friday, about 37% of them had received at least 1 shot. Around 18% had completed 2 shots. Vaccinations for about 36 million senior citizens started earlier this month. Less than 1% of them had received a shot as of Sunday. Vaccines have been delivered to this small village in northern Japan, but inoculations haven't started. The only clinic in the village has 1 doctor and 3 nurses. They can't start administering the vaccines until they make sure that residents would be transported to hospitals at neighboring municipalities in case of severe reactions.
We'd start the inoculation tomorrow if we could. It's frustrating.
3.9 million doses will be distributed across Japan over the next 2 weeks. The government plans to allow dentists to administer the vaccines in areas where there are shortages of medical workers. More than 3,300 new infections were confirmed in Japan on Monday. Over 900 of them were in the western prefecture of Osaka. Meanwhile, the number of vaccine doses administered around the world has passed 1 billion. Researchers at Britain's University of Oxford and other institutions made the estimate on the website Our World in Data. The United States tops the list by country with over 225 million doses given. China and India come second and third. By share of population, Israel comes top with almost 58% of its people fully vaccinated. The United Arab Emirates and Chile follow. Israel has seen infection rates fall. Just 82 new cases were reported Saturday. But Chile is facing a new surge as restrictions are lifted. Experts are calling for vigilance until enough people have been inoculated to achieve so-called herd immunity. New daily coronavirus cases in India have topped 300,000 for 5 straight days. On Monday, the government announced more than 350,000 new infections and over 2,800 deaths. Both are single-day records. Medical systems in India are under severe strain. Nearly all hospital beds and intensive care units across the capital, New Delhi, are occupied. The country also faces an acute and chronic shortage of oxygen for medical treatment. Patients unable to receive oxygen are dying at hospitals. Local media say healthcare is on the verge of collapse. The government is ramping up both domestic production and imports of oxygen. International efforts are underway to help India. The U.S. says it'll immediately provide diagnostic test kits, ventilators, and protective gear. Neighboring Pakistan has also pledged support for India. Authorities in Thailand are redoubling their efforts to combat the latest surge in coronavirus cases. Public venues and businesses in Bangkok have been closed to counter a contagious variant spreading rapidly. Parks, cinemas, bars, massage parlors, and many other places were shut in the capital on Monday. Authorities say the measures will remain in place for at least 2 weeks. Gatherings are now limited to 20 people, down from 50. Bangkok and over 40 provinces have made face masks mandatory in public spaces. Violators could face fines of over $600. Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha was seen without a mask during a meeting on Monday. Bangkok's governor says Prayut paid a fine of $190 for breaking the rule. Thailand managed to keep infections relatively low last year, but a variant first found in the UK has been mushrooming since late March. The country logged over 2,000 cases on Monday. That's about 70 times more than at the beginning of this month. Turning to Myanmar, ASEAN leaders held an emergency meeting over the weekend in a bid to end the turmoil that's racked the country since the military coup in February. Leaders of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations met in Jakarta, along with Min Aung Hlaing, head of the junta in Myanmar. A statement released after Saturday's talks calls for an immediate end to the violence ravaging the country. The five-point consensus also proposes the appointment of a special envoy to facilitate constructive dialogue among all parties and for the envoy to visit Myanmar. Earlier, we asked ASEAN expert Kawi Chongkitavorn for his take on the meeting. He explained why the statement doesn't demand the release of political detainees, including Aung San Suu Kyi.
I think the call for immediate cessation of violence is very important. And I think the release of key personality like Aung San Suu Kyi would come later, because at the moment, the priority of ASEAN is to ensure that there is a halt of all kinds of violence, and that access to humanitarian aids can be done as soon as possible.
Kawi says the next step is for ASEAN to choose an envoy and send a delegation to Myanmar to assess the situation. He says the next few months will be crucial for making progress toward resolving the crisis.
I think the Min Aung Hlaing will accept ASEAN envoy inside Myanmar, and that this envoy in the future will outreach to the national unities, government representative, and other stakeholders.
Kawi said personal rapport among the ASEAN leaders at the meeting was strong, and the level of trust is very high. He said if Min Aung Hlaing fails to follow through on the consensus, ASEAN's reputation will be tarnished, and it could withdraw from the negotiation process. A prominent Myanmar swimmer says he'll abstain from the Tokyo Olympics in protest of the military crackdown in his country. More than 700 civilians have been killed since the military seized power. In an online statement, freestyle swimmer Win Tet-u called the crackdown by the military and police indiscriminate killings. He described the Myanmar Olympic Committee as a puppet organization for a military regime that's ordered the killings of peaceful protesters and the arrests of democratic activists. The athlete said he will not march in the Parade of Nations under what he called a flag steeped in his people's blood. Win Tet-u called on the International Olympic Committee to refuse to acknowledge the Myanmar Olympic Committee, saying accepting it is to recognize the legitimacy of the junta. Meanwhile, South Korea's government says it'll soon begin vaccinating its delegation to the Tokyo Olympic and Paralympic Games in a show of support for its athletes. The Culture, Sports and Tourism Ministry announced on Monday that the inoculations will begin at the end of this month. Athletes and coaches are to be given the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine. In South Korea, vaccinations have yet to begin for people in younger age groups, except for medical workers. A ministry official said he hopes undergoing vaccinations will become the new norm for athletes taking part in the Games. In Japan, the main ruling party's policy chief said this month that his party would consider giving priority vaccinations to Japanese athletes, but Japan's minister for the Games later said the government hadn't discussed the matter. It's time now for a check on world weather. In Japan, weather has been so dry that several forest fires have ignited since last week. Our meteorologist Sayaka Mori has more on when the dry weather will come to an end.
Hello there. Relative humidity dropped to the single digits in western Japan, especially in Kyushu on Monday, and humidity has been below 20 degrees in Tokyo for 4 days in a row. That's the first time in 8 years for the month of April. Now, this high pressure system will continue to make things dry across most part of Japan for the next couple of days or so, but a change is on the way, especially western Japan. You will start to see rain on Wednesday, and rain will also spread to the eastern areas, including Tokyo, by Thursday. Thursday is a national holiday, so unfortunately it's going to be a wet holiday for Tokyo on Thursday. Sapporo will see sunny weather on Tuesday, beautiful sunny weather with a high 15 degrees, but rainy weather is in the forecast on Wednesday. Meanwhile, it's going to be summer-like temperature-wise across southeastern Europe and parts of the Middle East. Jerusalem could see a high of 30 degrees on Thursday. Athens and Ankara will see quite warm temperatures as we go into the latter part of this week. Now, it's going to be cold and snowy across the western United States and western Canada. Parts of British Columbia might see about 25 centimeters of snow. Snow and winds will affect many places of the western U.S., especially in the higher elevations. But across the southern plains, thanks to nice southerly winds, temperatures will be on the rise. But be careful of wildfires. It's going to be pretty dangerous. Temperatures are going to be 26 in Oklahoma City and 27 degrees in Houston on Tuesday, and it's much chillier across the western areas. Only 19 in Los Angeles and in the mid-teens in the Pacific Northwest. Now let's go to Alaska. Take a look at this video. Residents in Fairbanks, Alaska were able to enjoy beautiful lights in the sky last week. The aurora borealis brought beautiful colors over a dark sky as the northern light season comes to an end. The season usually occurs from August to April. That's it for me. Have a nice day.
In India, people in Delhi seek their own oxygen supplies for those sick with COVID-19 as infections jump across the country. A leaked recording of Iranian Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif shows disagreement among the nation's top leaders. Hong Kong and Singapore decide to move forward with a delayed air bubble to ease travel between the cities starting May 26th. And in Somalia, gunfire was heard in Mogadishu Sunday as soldiers loyal to the government and ones opposed to the country's president took up positions in the city.
The US says it's releasing 60 million doses of the AstraZeneca coronavirus vaccine to India. It comes as the country struggles in the grip of a brutal second wave. The European Commission has begun legal action against the pharmaceutical firm AstraZeneca over alleged breaches of contractual agreements for the supply of its coronavirus vaccine. The two sides have been in dispute for months. Boris Johnson suggested that bodies could pile high during a heated discussion in Downing Street last autumn as he hoped to avoid another lockdown. Sources have confirmed this to the BBC. The PM denied making the remarks, adding that lockdowns had worked. And a Russian prosecutor has moved to suspend the activities of political offices set up by the jailed opposition leader Alexei Navalny. The moves are part of efforts to ban Mr. Navalny's organisations.